I think we should stop normalizing the idea that women without children don't mother.
Hey, welcome back to the Torch Mom podcast. We have a special guest with us tonight, Josie, a Torch Mom taking on risk and crushing hate daily. Josie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, I like to get the party started. We don't waste no time over here. Are you ready to get the party started?
I definitely have. It's been a long day, but I think I'm definitely ready for it.
Yeah, it's been a long day for the both of us. I wonder how many more moms have had a long Wednesday today because that's the day we're recording. So I wonder how are your Wednesdays going for today? Just like us. Was it a long day? Was it a short day? Did you get a nap in while the baby was getting a nap in or while the kids were gone? Let us know in the comments. Look, we're going to dive into these questions and get this party started.
Cool.
What was your childhood like, and how do you think it shaped the woman you are today?
So, my name is Josie. I use she, her pronouns. I am a mom of twins under two. They turned two in August. I am also the wife of a military veteran and sister of just an amazing human, my cousin and aunt, uh, dog aunt, all sorts of things. And along with that, in my work, I'm an individual couples and family therapist specializing in relational trauma, specifically for folks who are people of color, who are queer, who are part of the LG or who are first generation and immigrants. So that's just a bit about what I do. I am the child of Ghanaian immigrants, which is a point of not only joy but a point of pride for me because it started out with a foundation of really being grounded in community. It in my childhood, I was pretty bold, that's a good word, and I think I was very determined, that's the word my mom uses to describe me, and I think she's also similarly determined, so I think that's why she knows to use that word well with me, and in that determination, I was always given the room to really see what it looked like for women to do hard things
Mhm,
and overcome them.
mhm,
And so from my grandmother to my aunts to my mom to my sister to just women in general, I was surrounded by a lot of women who just worked really, really hard. And in working really hard, they created a pathway for me to be able to not only just work hard, but work hard in the things that I experience passion in and
mhm.
experience joy in. And so I think in becoming a wife and a mom, it has allowed me to really see the benefit of being grounded by those who set such an example around work ethic. And in that, I think that's what's allowed me to be able to get to where I am now.
Awesome. So, who were you before motherhood, becoming a therapist, professor,
Yeah.
and wife? What were you passionate about? What did your life look like?
Wow, that feels so far away, even though it has it was only less than 2 years ago, but,
Yes, reflection
um,
moment.
just like, I think of that person, it's just like it's almost like a lifetime ago, but Josie, before being a mom, was very driven and passionate in her career,
Okay.
and I was really focused on being the best social worker and therapist that I could be and I worked really, 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 really hard, but I did not work smart. I think
Mm.
I took the scenic route to accomplish my goals rather than taking the more curt and direct route. So, for example, the amount of time I used to get all of my training, I could have gotten a doctoral degree and been done. Um, I got a master's in social work, and then at the same time, I got a master's in education, and a master's in marriage and family therapy. Um, and after getting the master's in marriage and family therapy, I began to build a practice in that time, 2021, 2022. I started my private practice, and then I expanded to be a group pretty soon after that in 2023. And then I brought on an intern. So like I just was so focused on building, and I
Mhm.
didn't really see life all that much beyond being with my now husband, seeing my family when I wasn't working, and work. Like, it was just very much so, like, grounded in those 3 things. And
Mhm.
what was really just unsustainable about that, honestly, was that I don't think I saw myself ever resting.
Mm.
And I think there was a large part of me that, and I think it's still a little true now, but it was especially true then, I didn't think I deserved that rest. 'Cause I was like, I've been given such an opportunity by those who sacrificed to come to this country for me to be able to, like, do the thing, and so rest felt like, and still feels like, and sometimes, a privilege, and it takes a lot of intentionality to realize that the sacrifices that those before me made wasn't so that I would put all this pressure on myself to be perfect. It
Mhm.
was to set an example of what it looks like to make the best decisions for yourself and for future generations. So I think in becoming a mom, I really understood that and had that transformational shift. And my pregnancy was something else. That's a whole thing into of itself. But I think before being a mom, I was very, my mom says determined, I say stubborn. Um, I just knew what I wanted and I worked really hard to go for what I wanted. And if I heard a no, I took the no as this is either a no now or this is a no to this door, but it doesn't mean there's another door that's not open. So there's just a lot of passion to really figure things out.
Mm. Well, I love the mindset shifts you definitely went through.
Yeah, it was not without tears, and it was not without uh, a lot of introspection, and it
Mm.
was not without a lot of just accountability from myself to myself regarding the person that I was becoming. And I
Mhm.
think if I hadn't thrown a wrench at the path that I was going, I probably would have burned out even harder than I would have. And I think getting pregnant, even though my pregnancy was brutally difficult, and having 2 at the same time, pregnant, was brutally difficult. It forced me to slow down in a way that I had never even imagined slowing down.
Mm.
Um, my kids are strong and healthy now. Like, they're almost 2, they're walking and talking and doing, you might hear the baby monitor in the background, they're supposed to be sleeping, but they're giggling with each other. But my transformation to really understanding what it takes to be a mom came from that season or that change in those
Mhm.
8.5 months being pregnant.
Mhm. So let's get into that. What were your biggest fears or anxieties about becoming a mom? And how did
Mm.
you prepare yourself for the transition?
No, one of my biggest fears was that my pregnancy was be hard. And it was really, really hard. Carrying 2, I have so much respect for people who carry children, like I've always have, but I think having done it now, there were medical complications and just my strength wasn't there, my brain wasn't working. And at one point they were saying that like you might have to deliver at 24 weeks. And I like sat there and was like, well, my legs are staying crossed. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just gonna sit here and we're gonna figure it out. Like they're hanging out and me, you're gonna have essentially you're gonna have to take me in kicking and screaming for me to deliver at
Mm-hmm.
24 weeks. Essentially is what ended up happening. But um I think that that transformation and the fears around being a mom also came with the fact that I would lose my sense of self, and I would lose my sense of the things I enjoyed before being pregnant and the things that I thought I was going to become such a different person that like I wouldn't be able to have any connection to the person that I was beforehand. And I think for a little bit of time that was true.
Mm-hmm.
Because when my twins were born, they were in the NICU for a little bit, for 16 days, which in the grand scheme of things is actually not very long. But having not gone through it before, it felt like every day felt like a week. Every day felt like a month. It felt like it was just there. And I was there day in, day out,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes 20, 22 hours of the day. I was up and awake with them. Um, and every nurse and every doctor was worried that I was not resting because I would literally just be there, like just staring at the monitor, like, are they breathing? Are they breathing? Are they okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are they
Mm-hmm.
are they good? And I think that my fear, one of just of not being able to get them here, because that was a big fear of mine, and then my fear of them struggling when they got here. I think I had to really overcome that. And a lot of the things that I learned in school became very real. Because, like, I knew it in my head, I had studied it in books, but it ended up just becoming very applicable. Like, I tell my clients a lot, perfectionism is a form of white supremacy. Like, I say that all the time. And I had to sit there and think, like, oh, yeah, I'm striving for perfection right now. And it's not serving anybody any good. So I probably should take a step back and reevaluate this. So I think there's a lot of things that like I saw happen in real time that I had to evaluate what would Josie the therapist say. And then I realized that it was so different from what I was doing. And I had to really
Mm.
come back to. But I don't know if I answered your question. I think I kind of went on a tangent there.
No, you answered.
Oh,
You
cool.
answered. Yep. And okay, so we talked, you went in about your identity, right? So, how would you say that shift of your sense of identity, what did it bring in for you? Did you keep it? Were you able to get back to you? What happened?
I think I started really feeling like myself 3 to 4 months ago
Mm.
when my
And they're
children
two
were
now.
they're 21 months, 22 months now.
Okay.
May, June, July. Oh, 21 months now.
Okay.
And at 17, 18 months, I think I really got back to one because my brain came all the way back, which nobody warned me about that part. Like everyone's like, yeah, after a year, you begin to feel like yourself. And it was like after a year, I did not feel like myself. I felt like I was down, then be able to breathe, you know what I mean? I was able to sleep through the night. Like I didn't feel like Josie until 3 or 4 months ago, and my brain wasn't working until 3 or 4 months ago. So that's just
Mm-hmm.
one part where I feel like that's true. But I think what helped me come back to myself is a few things. I think having a husband who, I mean, he's honestly just probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'll just be very real about that. But who could balance my incessant need to be independent um
Mm-hmm.
with my ever longing desire to be cared for, and just that dichotomy, he balances that so well. And I think I didn't know what it looked like to be cared for but still be able to take care of myself. And I think at
Mm.
3 to 4 months ago I was like, okay, I can ask my husband for help, and he can help them in the evening times, and he can do the thing, and he can handle it so I can see clients, and I'm not going to have this impending guilt that I'm not spending 3 to 4 hours. Because a particular piece with my individual situation is the daycare that my kids go to is also a co-working space. So I'm with them
Okay.
all day. I go
Mm-hmm.
and I check on them almost every hour on the dot to make sure that they're good. So I think there is a piece of like, I had to really work through that sense of feeling like they can have other people there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be the end all be all for everything for them. And it's actually good for them to have a sense of knowing that their dad is there and that their daycare is there and they have friends and they have godmothers and they have like then they have like my family when we go to visit them and they have my husband's family when we go to visit them. So I think that's 3 months ago I felt like that's where I was really able to not feel this sense of like I lost all control in my pregnancy, so I'm gonna fight to keep as much of it as
Mm-hmm.
possible.
Right.
I was able to begin to let go of that. I think that made a really big difference.
Well, thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
because that will definitely help so many moms
Yeah.
feel not so much alone in what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
Because they feel like, oh, after I have this baby, I'm supposed to just get right back into the swing of things. Everything's going to go right back to where it was. And sometimes it's not that.
No. Mm-mm.
Take some time. Yep.
And even on a physical level, a fun fact, my older sister and I were pregnant at the same time. Both in our first pregnancy at the same time. She was pregnant
Wow.
with one boy and I had two girls. So it was a big year for our parents. They having a lot of grandchildren in one year. And my sister is incredibly resilient and brilliant. I frankly think between the two of us, she's the one who probably should have been the therapist because she just has that level of just empathy that I think it's just so natural to her. But when going through pregnancy, she was so strong after. Like physically strong. Like in her pregnancy, she could go for a walk. Like
Mhm.
that blew I was like, you are outside walking. You put your shoes on and you're okay. Like, excuse me. I would like look at her and be like, I just finished vomiting. We're in month 6, month 7. What do you mean? And so like I think I also really, and this is not her fault by any stretch of the imagination. I think she was really, really compassionate at this time. And she'd be like,
Mhm.
Josie, I'm having one. Like, you're having two. You're doing something that like no one in our generation has done before. You're the first to have twins. The last person to have twins is like almost 90 now. Like it's just
Mm.
such a gap. And I was like, well, that's true. I guess I should give myself that compassion. But I think even on a physical level, it's really important for me to say that like if you don't snap back to, that's completely fine. Because I dropped 50 something pounds and then I gained a bunch of it, but not all the way back, but I gained a bunch of it back because I didn't know how to manage it. So I think there was
Mhm.
just a lot of change in that time, right down to even how I looked. That I
Mhm.
wish that someone would have told me, like, it's okay to sit with all the changes that are happening at the same time and there be a level of grace to know that your body is and your brain and the way you sit in community, the way you work, it's all going to change and it's going to
Mhm.
take a couple of years to like fully get back to that.
Well, I'm glad that you just told so many listeners just that.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yep, that's exactly what you did. Mm-mm-mm. What would you say originally pulled you toward mental health and relational work?
So I was at one point a teacher at a residential school
Okay.
up in the mountains here in Colorado. I did it as my AmeriCorps like fellowship after undergrad. And even though I had years of experience in classrooms before that, in undergrad and high school, all those pieces, I had about like maybe 4 or 5 years of experience even before graduating college. I found that once I was in that environment, it's definitely still one of my favorite like careers that I ever had was being in that school for that year. But I found that a lot of the students that I was working with were from similar places to me. Like I'm from Anaheim, um, which is not that far from LA.
Mm-hmm.
And I had students who were from the Valley and from Fullerton and from Gardena and like from places that I knew and I understood their experiences. And there were some of the other fellows with me who were from New York and from Minnesota, and there were a lot of us who just brought a lot of lived experience. And what was interesting about my cohort is that 7 of us out of the 13 were Black, which was also unprecedented
Mm-hmm.
too, working with all of these students of color. So it was just a really transformational year. And I found that when I would meet with them, and I was a pretty tough teacher, which I also credit my mother because my mother was also a pretty tough teacher. I would have like my red or purple pen and I would be like editing for grammar, and they would get their papers back and they would just be like sobbing because they have never gotten that level of feedback before.
Mm.
I found that I was able to hold that sense of a really high standard and say, you are moving through this world as a Black person or as a person of color, and the stakes are not going to be easy for you. So I would rather you experience what it is like to get critical feedback and constructive criticism that's going to make you better in an environment where you're going to get a lot of support at the same time. So you
Hmm.
can build that sense of resilience in doing it well. So you learn how to care about something bigger than yourself or the gang you came from or the community that you were in or the little boyfriend you want to have. Like you actually care about something that impacts your future.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I was able to really build solid relationships with not only the students but with the team that I had. And in that process, I met a good number of social workers between like my undergrad and that year.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize like, yeah, being a teacher is cool, but I feel like there's something that I need to learn, and it feels like it needs to be in mental health. So I took the very hilarious decision to apply to the University of Denver, their graduate school of social work, and their school of education. And I thought, you know what? I will put it in the university's hands. They will, I will probably get into one and not the other. Like that was my mindset going in. And whichever one I get into, it will let me know where I need to. I kind of like put it up to faith, put it up to the university, see where to go.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that I get into both. Okay, problem number no, number one. I'm like, okay, cool. Didn't think I was that qualified, but fine, awesome. And then I learned with all of the scholarships and things that they were giving combined, it would be cheaper to do both than to do just one. So I was like, oh, is that an option? And apparently, at many universities, I do not recommend this unless you are real passionate about what you're doing. They have flexible dual degree options. You can get multiple masters at the same time and essentially curate your path at the university. So each quarter,
Hmm.
I had to go and I had to present my classes to both of my advisors. And I had to get their approval and I had to explain how this was going to impact my career. And I had to literally, essentially, petition my way through for 3 years. And then at the end of
Mm-hmm.
that third year, I was like, or end of that second year, I was like, I need to know how to do therapy. So I ended up tacking that on and doing a postmaster's in marriage and family therapy that's equivalent to a master's degree. So I think in working with those young people, which I still think about them all the time, and thinking about the social worker, especially there, who was also a fellow with me, and she was already a licensed social worker at the time, it let me know that I needed to work relationally within community. So I went into grad school thinking I was going to be like a school social worker or school counselor.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized in those environments, the kids, yes, very much so, the teenagers were great to work with, but the real root of a lot of the issues that I was encountering was within the families that they were in.
Mm.
And so when would see either the impacts of the families or would meet the families, I would realize that's the unmet need that know that I want to be able to work on. So it let me
Mhm.
know, how am I to get there? And that's what let me know that I needed to do couples and family therapy, because it would allow me to get that knowledge that I needed to be able to work in those environments. And when I went into doing that training, I thought, I'm going to take this training. Maybe I'll do therapy on the side, but I'll go back and I'll take it into the schools. So when I'm meeting with parents, I'll be equipped to do so. But I ended up like falling in love with it. And
Mhm.
well, family therapy, I'll be very clear about that. Couples therapy still stresses me out. I love my clients who do couples therapy. I think the couples that I have absolutely feel like they make me love it. But at the time, especially, like I did not like couples therapy. So I really just
Mhm.
wanted to work with families. And I fell in love with that. And so I decided to start a practice that would allow me to really work with the communities that I wanted to work with and really market to them, because especially being in the state of Colorado, there are not many of us who, especially at that time, this is what, 8 years ago, who were really out here doing mental health work like that with
Mhm.
people of color in that way, especially with families. It just was not a thing. It's much
Mhm.
more popular now, but 8 years ago was not nowhere near as popular as it was now. So I think that in digging into that work, of course, it's transformed how I work, and I've learned a lot since that time. But I think the core root is that I believe healing happens in relationships, and that hasn't changed. And I think in being a mom, that only solidified that,
Mm.
because when I see moms and they know that I understand their experience, and many times I'm working with moms whose kids are older than mine,
Mhm.
forces them to sit in their wisdom and sit in their expertise of having done what I'm doing now, and be able to see their strengths in that process.
Mm.
I'll look at them and I'll say, like, I have 2 under 2. I don't even have 2 years into this thing. Like, they were screaming 5 minutes before I got into this call. And I'm here. And I have bags under my eyes, and my hair is probably a little bit of a mess, and I probably have stains on my clothes from their food. And they would look at me and be like, I've been there, and you will get through it.
Mm.
And then I look at them and I say, huh, you don't say. So why is that true for me, but not true for you? And that bait and switch, they're like, oh, I see what you did there.
Mhm.
Oh, well. And then I'm looking at them like,
Yep.
that's what I thought. And so it let me know that sticking and doing that relational work was really important. And I thought like I would just be in the therapy room. And I used to guest lecture for some of my friends' classes, especially when I did it every year. And when they needed a professor to take a class, I actually like stumbled into being a professor. I didn't do like the normal, like, you go in and you apply and you interview. It was like oh crap, we need someone to cover this class. And my friend was like, do you want to do it? Like, I know you have a master's in education, you know how to teach. Like, do you want to do this? And funnily enough, I got the teaching position. Was it 3 or 4 days before going on my honeymoon? So I had to go on my honeymoon and then come back. And then 3 days later, I was teaching a class for the first time.
Oh.
So I just think that the career trajectory has almost been like a ball rolling down a hill. And I think
Mm.
being a mom has allowed that ball to stop, and for me to be strategic as to what I
Mm.
put my time and energy into and where I needed to do it, rather than feeling like I needed to take on everything and do
Mhm.
everything myself. So I think that's a long scenic answer to your question.
No, I don't care because all those gems that are in there, they up for grabs.
Yeah, that's fair.
They up for
Okay.
grabs now. Hmm. And as someone deeply aware of systemic pressures and identity based harm,
Mhm.
what feels most important to you in the way that you're raising your daughters?
No one has ever asked me that before. I think that it is causing me to raise my twins, my daughters, from a place of knowing that they have autonomy
Mm,
over their bodies and over their opinions and over their words, while simultaneously knowing that that autonomy comes with consequences. And those consequences can be positive or could be negative. And the choices that you make inevitably impact that autonomy moving forward. So, like, they're not even two now, but I'll give a very brief example. I let them pick what they want for breakfast in the morning. I'll present three options. It's usually between oatmeal, cream of wheat, and Cheerios. And it's
mhm,
like, you pick what you want. And when they pick, that's their choice. And if they see their sister get a different thing, and one sister picks Cheerios and one picks oatmeal, your consequence is now that you are having oatmeal. I did not pick the oatmeal for you, homie. You picked the oatmeal yourself. So if you see your sister and you're like, oh, now I want Cheerios, I wonder why you made a decision. And so I'm able to look at them and be like, are you going to eat the food that is in front of you that you chose to have? Or
mhm,
are you going to sit and let it get cold? That is
mm,
ultimately your choice.
mm,
And there are times where they will choose two things. So they'll take each hand and be like, which I think they're catching on to my game, honestly. So I will one was it? Oh, it was actually this morning. Yeah. I gave dry Cheerios in the bowl and
mhm.
oatmeal because one of my daughters literally picked both.
Okay.
So she was able to make the decision of, I want to be able to experience the joy of Cheerios and the heartiness of oatmeal at the same time. And so I gave it to her. She was hearty and she ate all of her food and she was energized and ready for the day. But it was a point where I think at this tiny age she realized that I'm going to honor her choices.
Mhm,
And if she gets upset and she has a whole big moment, I have learned, and I think understanding systemic oppression, I am very intentional to really help them regulate.
mm,
Because if they have that big old sort of tantrum outside of our home or outside of safe spaces, it could be fatal, to just
mhm,
put it bluntly.
mhm,
So, in teaching them at this very cool age to, and I have to thank their godmothers for this too, because they're also very helpful at this, and teaching them to regulate, they're now able to move through difficult situations slightly better. They will throw a tantrum at home and they will like have a big moment and a big emotion. There'll be a lot of feelings, a lot of tears, and we would have to use some time to really sit with it, whatever it is. But I asked at daycare, do they throw themselves on the floor and do they get upset when they don't get their way? And they looked at me like,
what?
are you asking about these two? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, no, we don't experience that behavior here. And I'm like, okay.
Mm,
So even if you're not using the tools at home and you need the safety to be able to work through new emotions and new experiences at home, okay. But you're utilizing the tools that we're working on in school. So I'm getting a report that you're easy peasy lemon squeezy and you're able to name what you need. And if you don't like something, you might huff and puff a little bit, but hey, you're taking a deep breath.
mhm, mhm. Yep.
You might give a little bit of a side eye to your teacher, and I might hear about that little bit of a side eye, but what would I rather have? you throwing yourself on the floor and being completely unmanageable? Or are you going, like, I would rather take the second. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And
Yep.
I know that it's going to change as they change developmentally, and my approach to it is going to have to change. And
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate the concepts within conscious parenting, within liberation psychology. I think they really help inform how I go about this and how to understand it from a developmental standpoint. But I think that by instilling some of these deeper tools in the beginning, I'm able to get a really strong sense of what support looks like for them and helping them really sit in that in their autonomy from a very young age. Because yes, developmentally, some folks argue that they're too young to make that sort of decision, but as honestly as Black children in America, they're going to be seen as more developmentally advanced than their white counterparts. So I at least want to be able to make sure that they have the ability to exercise that
Mm-hmm.
level of choice and know what that choice is from a very young age. And I do have to credit that I know that I've gotten a lot of professional support for them.
Mm-hmm.
They have been a part of early intervention programs that our state has that I don't have to pay for, that have covered physical therapy, that have allowed them to work with a developmental interventionist, that have allowed them to get a nutritionist, to be able to get all of these things and not have it come out of pocket. Like, I know there's definitely a level of privilege that comes to that. And we've also
Mm-hmm.
had physical therapists, especially for when they were younger and struggling with development. But I also know that taking all of that knowledge and taking my training and putting it together, hopefully it will allow them to be able to move through the world with a bit more ease. At least that's my hope.
Yeah. And their way going through life with that personal development ongoing is just amazing.
Thanks. I know they're going to be the ones who say, "Oh, my mom was a therapist. She's going to want to talk about this." And no, like I'm expecting that, where they're going to be like, "I better have an answer." When my mom
Okay.
asks, like, walk me through your thought process that made you think that that was a good idea, and we're gonna extrapolate this and see what you could have done differently. They're gonna know that I'm gonna expect that level of thinking out of them, even when they're young, which may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing, but it's just the thing I know I'm gonna naturally do, and I'll take
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. And they can understand, have an understanding throughout all processing.
Right.
Yeah. What does relational harm actually look like in everyday life, especially in relationships or families where things may seem fine on the outside?
Mm. I had a professor in graduate school in my social work program who used to talk about harm like paper cuts. She was also a wonderful Black professor, um, who actually is a director of one of the biggest agencies in Colorado now. But she used to say, if you get one paper cut, I mean, it's inconvenient, but not so bad. But if you
Mm-hmm.
get 1,000 paper cuts in the same location, that
Mm-mm.
becomes a wound. And wounds are harder to heal than paper cuts. So if when that first paper cut comes, if you are evaluating the environment that you are in that has created a level of an impact for that paper cut to happen, you're able to see what patterns, what themes, what systemically happened in order for that to occur. And you're able to see, is it within or outside of your locus of control? And by knowing what that is, you're able to understand the systems that you are working within in order to, even if there are 1,000 paper cuts right there already, and they all happen at the same time, you
Mm-hmm.
know that there's space and room to work through it, because whether it's one paper cut or it's 1,000, there's room for healing. But you have to be intentional be holistic and intersectional in how that healing occurs. So whenever I think about like relational trauma in everyday life, I think of Nadine Bridges. And I think of just like that wisdom of being able to really be able to apply that. And I think when working with clients, especially on relational trauma, especially couples who have experienced relational trauma, because I'm coming to love couples therapy more and more now, versus hating it in the beginning. I really remind them that in order to be able to work through what caused that harm, we have to figure out what that initial paper cut was. What went unnoticed? What went unsaid? What was okay
Mhm.
that actually created the pattern that is now that we're looking at 1,000 paper cuts? Whether it's infidelity, whether it's former domestic violence, whether it is, what was that paper cut? Not to necessarily place blame, but to really
Yeah.
evaluate the situation with objectivity and know that there is room once you see it objectively for yourself to know, okay, this is where I need to take accountability in
Mhm.
this. And there's transformational work that can happen there.
Mhm. And that really gives the way to be intentional about what will happen next.
Correct.
Mhm. Wow. Hmm. What does torch mom mean to you?
That's a good question. It is the uniqueness, it presents a uniqueness that allows for the authenticity of motherhood to be at the forefront of conversation. That's what I think it means to me. And in seeing the work, it takes what would usually happen in a therapy session and it allows for healing to happen in community. Because many times it takes a lot of steps before someone will come into the room to see me.
Mhm.
So there are spaces such as this one that don't necessarily need to have all of the jargon and have all of the places or all of those things, but can hold the space for community-based healing. That makes the process of introspection infinitely easier. And I have 6 years to back up that sentence with now of saying, yeah, if I know that someone is actively in community with other people and talking through things and getting mentorship and spending time with friends and like very much so knowing how to balance their time of rest with that time with community, it makes my job infinitely easier.
Mhm.
Infinitely easier.
Mhm.
I would say that's what it means to me.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspective.
Yeah.
When someone spends years
Mhm.
feeling like they have to shrink, code switch, or prove themselves just to belong,
Ooh.
what would you say happens emotionally?
Oh, what happens emotionally? I thought you were gonna initially ask what happens like physiologically, but what happens emotionally is it is like writing a check and it bouncing,
Mm.
going to the ATM and there being no money in that bank account, but you trying to pull out $100. It puts your brain and your body into survival mode
Mhm.
where there is there's an uncertainty on how to actually move through the world from a place of level-headed and regulated decision making, but instead it places folks in a chronic sense of operating from survival. And it
Mhm.
becomes so normalized that when we end up calling it to the surface, it's like, well, that's just what I do. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, is it working? because that check is still bouncing, homie. That credit card is still declining. And I don't care how much you try to sit here and tell me that your survival tactics are helpful long term, it's still bouncing. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So when we
Mhm.
think through how folks can do things differently, it first starts emotionally with the acknowledgement that the tools for survival are important, but they are meant for if you get approached by a mountain lion. They are meant for if you are experiencing a level of police brutality. They are meant for certain situations. They are not meant for every situation you encounter. That is overworking a muscle when there are many, many other tools that become inaccessible. And the process of working in community or the process of even working in therapy means that you're accessing those other tools.
Mm.
And one thing that one of my really good friends who's a teen therapist, she always likes to say that we in therapy, we model what relationship is supposed to look like. And I completely agree with her. We're supposed to model what what it looks like to be able to practice those hard skills in real time
Mhm.
and be able to see how to stumble through them so that after the session or after you've left the community space and you're encountering the issue, you know how to do so with some
Mhm.
level of a tool or some level of ease. I was on Instagram one time and I heard I feel like it was like one of the therapy directory platforms, but they had a video where the person was essentially saying that going to therapy or really working on healing is like going to a coach during a basketball game. The coach gets all the players together and gives them a plan, but the
Mhm.
coach is not the one executing that plan. It is the player executing that plan. And the coach is cheering you on and working to get you there, but there's only
Mhm.
so much that coach can do. The coach can't get on a jersey and get on the court and do it for you. There's a level of of self-determination that has to
Mhm.
come and readiness for said change in order for that to be able to happen. I feel like for those who are like only listen to audio, Tia's face is like, whew, she's just shaking her head.
Because what? Let it be known.
These things live in
It
my head rent free.
you dropping some gems out here.
Thanks.
Y'all, they leave me speechless too much. Just too much. Okay. So you support so many people while also being a wife,
Mhm.
mother. I'm going to read it out again. Professor and business owner.
Yeah, that.
How do you protect your own emotional well-being while constantly holding space for others?
I don't mean to laugh. I'm so sorry. I do not mean to laugh because I'm terrible at this. I'm god awful at it. I'm god awful at it because I find that the polished answer that I know is coming to my head is that like I take time to figure out how to prioritize and know that all things can't happen at the same time and I have to figure out what the priority is at the moment. And that's true. That's true. That's
Mhm.
true. That's true. But I know for myself there is a level of embedded and internalized perfectionism that
Mhm.
I am actively working through where when I make a mistake, because I'm not even going to say if, when I've made a mistake and that mistake has either been small or very big, it it impacts that prioritization process because there's such a and this is just my own introspection and I know for my own therapy, there's such a habit of tying my mistakes to my character and to my worth that it takes, and it is continuing to take a lot of growth and introspection to separate the mistakes that I made from what I didn't know from who I am
Mm.
as a person. So when you ask that, like, how do you do that? That's why I laughed, because I don't think I do it well. I think it's a learning process and a place where I'm continuing to try and get better at it. I think it's a real strength my husband has. He's very good at it. He's very good at
Mhm.
separating the, like, I did this thing that I shouldn't have done, and I still know that there are all of these things that I do well. I don't I credit his mother with with his ability to be able to do that. And so I look to him as an example in that, and I look to my faith as an example in that, and I
Mhm.
know it's an area of growth that I have, and I think in the process of becoming a mother, it's gotten easier to do, because the question my own therapist asks me now is, "Are you a crisis line for all of these people? And would you speak to your daughters, or even allow them to speak the way you speak about yourself to themselves?" I get annoyed every time she asks these two questions, because I know exactly what the answer is. And it's just the reality of the situation. So I know I'm not good at it. And I know it's something that I'm actively working on. And what
Mhm.
really irritates me many times, and I know I've done this on podcasts, is that I've given this perception that I have everything all put together and I'm presenting it all put together. But I think especially as my kids get older, I'm realizing the lessons and the connection to the people that you listen to come from them being vulnerable and naming the things that they don't do well, because that's going to stick. And because that sticks, everything else is going to stick. There's
Mm.
an educator, there's a theoretical educator. His
Mhm.
name is John Dewey, who talks about the experience that you give in an educational setting. And I apply it in so many different places, but the argument that John Dewey makes is that the experience not only informs the comprehension of the material,
Mhm.
but it informs how they move through the world and move through their communities after this. And mind you, John Dewey has been dead and gone a long time. I think he wrote this maybe in the 50s and 60s. This is not new information. But I think in the application of this, it means that when speaking on podcasts, when being in community, when being with my team, when being with my students, I allow them to see my imperfections, to know that there is no end result of, like, you have now figured it all out. Yes, of course, you
Mhm.
still do figure out, but there's no point of figuring it all out. Like, that's overrated and that's dumb.
Yeah. Mm. I love the realness. I do. I really do, because you have to give yourself multiple chances to unlearn and relearn so you can do the thing better.
Correct. Correct. My
Hmm.
computer is dying, so I'm gonna go sit at my husband's desk so that I don't lose you. Um,
Okay.
yes, that's 100% true.
Okay. And then after carrying these conversations this deep all day,
Mhm.
what helps bring Josie back to herself? Is that where your crocheting and sitcoms come in?
Yes, I am a huge crocheter. If you don't know who Tony Lipsy is from TL Yarn Crafts, she doesn't know me, but that's my girl. She's taught me everything that I know. She's a black crocheter, and I think Detroit now. I don't give her enough of a shout out, because I think seeing her be a wife and be a business owner and all of those pieces, it she really did teach me a lot beyond crochet and seeing her journey. So I think a
Mm.
lot comes from being in her community, taking her classes, watching her videos, watching her interviews. So I think there's that. I think there's just naturally crocheting in sitcoms. I think a lot of it comes from reading. And I am a huge I am a huge fasting and praying person.
Okay.
I'm a huge fasting and praying person. Which I find, I know that the faith piece doesn't align with everyone, because of a lot of the systemic oppression that comes with faith. But I know for myself and my own lived experience, I find not just solace and peace in it, it is an active form of resistance to know that the colonization of faith does not equate what the faith was actually meant to be, which is a whole other conversation for a different day. But I think that's where that piece around that fasting and praying piece, because I know that I would not be in the spot where I am if I did not have that discipline to really focus and lean in and really figure out how I need to take care of myself. And it's provided a lot of direction there.
Yeah. I am looking forward to getting into fasting.
I
Yeah.
recommend it. I think if you have health issues, like I know I am chronically ill, I have to be very careful in doing it. So definitely talk to your medical provider if you have any level of issue in doing it. But the piece
Mhm.
that I like to really tell folks who are interested in it, and I'm able to talk to about fasting, even if it's not for religious reasons or for prayer reasons, is that fasting doesn't just have to be from food. There can be an active decision to take a break from something that is actively not serving you so you can see what your life looks like without it.
Mm.
So whether you do it long term or it's whether it's so bright and you're like, I want to do it long term, or if it's even just something very short term, like I need to not gossip. That was one that I did several years ago. Of like, I found myself watching a lot of gossip on television. I found myself
Mhm.
getting in the habit of doing a lot of gossiping, and it just was not serving me. So when I was like, I am fasting from gossiping, that's where a lot of this transformation, I think that was a point where a lot of transformation happened to me. That happened when I was 21, and that was
Mhm.
actually right before meeting my husband. And so I felt like it prepared me to go into that season of meeting the person that I would end up being with, because I was too focused on the da, 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 and this person said this and this person said that and
Mhm.
that, and I was just not focused on my own development. So I think that fasting piece, if it aligns with your values the way it does with mine, can really open the doors for you to see what what it looks like to be in these different environments in different places. But that's a whole other day.
Because I'm telling you, you got to stop something to see something.
I do
Okay.
think that's true. I do think that's true.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm. Speaking of true, give us a truth about healing, motherhood, or relationships that you had to learn the hard way.
Didn't I? I was like, what didn't I learn the hard way? I had to learn healing is like an alcohol swab. You can hold that alcohol swab in your hand forever, for years, and that wound can sit there for years. But the moment that there is that intentional decision to put the alcohol swab on the wound, it may look a lot worse after you put it on the wound. It might get real ugly looking. It might be pus, all sorts of things coming out of it. That's very real, but it doesn't change the role of the alcohol swab. So if you're sitting in a spot where you are like, I know I need support, I need help with my mental health, I need help with my physical health, whatever it may be. If you picture it like an alcohol swab, it really simplifies it. If you're sitting there holding an alcohol swab until it dries out, it's gonna lose its ability to do what you need it to do. But when you
Mhm.
are ready and you open up the packet and you take the alcohol swab out and you're in that action stage of change, if we're going to talk like a book and the trans theoretical model change, and you put it on there, you can do it one big swipe, or you can take forever and rub around it, whatever it is, it still gets the alcohol on the wound. And it still gives you a better picture of what's happening with that wound, and you'll be able to see what happens when you take care of that wound. But that first step is usually pretty uncomfortable. That is something
Mm.
that I've had to learn the hard way.
It's the perspective shifts for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Woo! Mm-mm-mm. What's something women and mothers should stop normalizing emotionally
Mm.
because it actually isn't healthy?
Oh, I feel like I'm gonna get a little trouble for this one. I think we should stop normalizing the idea that women without children don't mother. I really think we should stop. And people without children do not parent because
Mm,
many times they have more capacity in the moment to sit and hold the space that we as parents may have a really hard time to do.
mm-hmm,
And so if there is a a friend or a godmother who actively is pouring into your child and they do not have children themselves, I believe in regarding them with the same respect that
mm-hmm,
you do a parent. Do they understand the experience of carrying a child or adoption or whatever it is? They may not understand that piece, but I
mm-hmm,
think Tracy Ellis Ross said it pretty dang well when she said that like children or people who don't have children, women who don't have children have been responsible for holding and carrying generations through just
mm-hmm,
as much, if not more in some cases, than those of us who become mothers.
mm-hmm.
And so the more quickly we stop dishonoring what like child free people do for our communities, I think the better off our children are going to be.
Yep, I totally agree. I totally agree. Because even though this is a mom community and we are a mom podcast, we do Let's Chat live sessions. That way, people who are not moms can still come in and help us thrive throughout life because you don't know the gems that they hold. You don't
No,
know the knowledge that they have to pass down, for generations to come. Give them their chance.
yeah.
Don't shut them out. I agree. I agree.
It's just like how I think that folks who aren't married, they can impart a lot of wisdom knowing the experience of singleness.
Mhm.
I 100% think that's true. Is it an
Yeah.
identical experience? No, but the difference in that experience can be incredibly valuable.
Mhm.
And just
Mhm.
like I tell my team all the time, the people who I consult with on cases when I am or I need to figure out what to do when I'm teaching, whatever it may be, are usually people who are not actively seeing clients in the room now.
Mhm.
There are people
Mhm.
who either did it in the past or they're doing a different role, but they have that sense of freshness and perspective. I just think that we've got to start honoring those folks in those communities.
Well, you just put some honor on them. So I thank you for bringing that to light. Mhm. Yes, I do. So do you have any upcoming projects or ventures you're excited about?
Well, I to start, I own a group practice that specializes in relational trauma for individuals, couples, and families. And there are multiple of us on our team, our growing team, who are taking on clients. That's the first piece. The second piece is I have started a therapy like support group specifically for folks who are getting ready to get married that are not it is not it is not premarital counseling in the fact that like you go through the same 5 topics. It is
Mhm.
an ongoing process group that allows for folks to be able to really dig into the the real meat of things that usually don't come up until after you're married.
Mm.
And I originally had it as like a therapy group specifically for Colorado, but I am in the process of expanding it out so that it ends up being just like a support group um,
Mhm.
for folks where regardless of where where you are. So that's another piece that I have coming up. I also have some pieces around articles and things that are coming up on my website, but I would say that those are probably the biggest things.
Well, please share that with us so we can share it with the community and the audience. And I know we have a mom in the community that will be getting married in September. And
Oh
I think
wow.
she's in Mississippi.
Mm.
So I want to share that with her.
Yes, definitely do. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
do. Right now we have room for 4 couples.
Okay.
um, at $50 a person, and
Hmm.
it has a minimum of an 8-week commitment, just so that we're sure we're able to have that level of community. Um,
Hmm.
but the hope is to just be able to bring folks together before they make a really big decision,
Hmm.
knowing that their
Hmm.
lives are going to become like transformed in that process.
I love that. It's so exciting. I love that. Okay. Well, we know now, you guys. And like I said, I will drop the goodies in the description section per usual so you can get right on it and be able to connect with Josie and her resources.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. What would you say is one cycle you're intentionally breaking through your motherhood right now?
One cycle I'm intentionally breaking. I am intentionally breaking the cycle of I am breaking the cycle of bed rotting. I think before having children, I would just be so mentally drained that
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to really go out anywhere or see anyone or do anything because I would just be so tired. But I think now with having children and being a mother, I want them to experience all the joys that come with seeing our community, being in places. So we go to the library now and we go to museums, we go to parks and we go to if you don't know, Michael's has a kids club where they do free arts and crafts. If you don't
Hmm.
know that, I would definitely go. My twins just decorated bookmarks. They're cute as hell. They have, like, little stickers, and you see the little drawing on it, and it just scribbles at this point for mine, but I hung them up because I'm proud. So I think I'm breaking the cycle of isolating in the name of feeling like that's the only form of rest.
Hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Yeah. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Or is there anyone you'd like to give flowers to before we close out?
Oh, I'm leaning more toward the second question. I think I want to give flowers to the 3 godmothers my daughters have. And I picked 3 because I love Cinderella and I believe that they should have 3 godmothers. And I just it was a Cinderella reason why I have 3. But Lena and Michaela and Sahile, they pour into the girls with such love, such prayers, such wisdom, such compassion, and they're all 3 so different. One is a mental health therapist like me, one is a lawyer, one is a nurse. And so they just bring, and they're all just cool, you know? I was like, I'm not that, I mean, I think I'm kind of cool, but they're like actually cool. Like they dress cool, they look cool. That was like a prerequisite for me. And they mother my daughters in ways that I know I can't because they bring lived experience, they bring joy, they bring their full selves into my daughters' lives in a way that I'm just really, really grateful for. And I love the 3 of them for that.
Mm. Well, give them their flowers and shout out to them.
Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, it's great when you can create that village and trust in the ones that you chose.
Yeah. And of course my sister. But my sister's not a godmother, so it's a little different. I definitely want
Hey,
to. Flowers too.
Give her flowers. Give sis her flowers. Y'all are pregnant together.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. Wow. Well, I thank you so much for sharing your insights, experiences, and space with us, Josie. Your
Thank
time and energy is truly appreciated.
I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
I'm glad to hear. You guys, if today's episode was something you loved, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mom who needs to hear this. If you have experiences or questions to share, send us an email to the Torch Mom Podcast at gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook at the Torch Mom Podcast. Plus, the Torch Mom Confessions Hotline is always open. Call 202-670-6476 anytime, or use the voice memo link in the description if that's easier. And don't forget, this week's confession question, your voice might be exactly what another mom needs.
Hmm.
If you didn't have a backstage pass to check out the live stream, it'll be available for viewing on our YouTube channel, the Torch Mom Podcast. So be sure to subscribe, like, and share. Negativity is forbidden and
I know
energy
that's
is
right.
power.
I know that's right.
Remember, what you desire, you already have. We love you. Stay torch.
Bye.